To get ahead of 99% of traders in 2026, there's this one process that kept us in that top 1% year after year, and it is brutal reflection followed by systematic improvement. Because here's what nobody tells you about winning in trading. It's sometimes more dangerous than losing. When you're up big, when the money is flowing in daily, that's when you get lazy. That's when you ignore liabilities that are stacking up underneath your portfolio, and that's normally when the market prepares to slap you awake. In today's episode, we're ripping apart our 2025 performance, the good, the bad, and the painfully stupid. You'll hear about a $36,000 wake-up call that I'm actually quite thankful for nowadays. We'll talk about October 10th, which was the flash crash that liquidated most people in crypto. But more importantly, you're getting our exact playbook for 2026 and the 3 main improvements we're looking to implement. This isn't going to be generic advice like stay disciplined. This is 2 traders who are having a general conversation around 2025 and how we can improve for 2026. Let's get into this episode. Through this podcast, we're just going to go over all our mistakes and then all the ways we plan to improve over into 2026 that you can take for your own trading, as well as the key things that have maybe led us to more improvement this year, or the key things that have really helped our profitability this year as well. Pedmer, if you want to start it off with maybe your first one.
Sure. So the big one that I'm going into to give a bit of a background, right? So 2025, we were talking this before I started recording. It was an year that it seems so short and yet at the same time so large. I cannot explain it. I've learned so much this year. That there has been so many things that you learn on the job that you cannot learn anywhere else, in my opinion. And so there's a bunch of points that we put together to try and think how we're going to improve to 2026. A lot of these points are already being covered. At least I've already started building the necessary steps to get there. And so I can talk about them, but I think these are the main points. So the first one is really around diversification of strategies, right? One of my bigger problems these past few years is that I kind of concentrated myself on a single strategy type, and it is doing basic risk premium, specifically trend following in crypto markets. And even though that is good, at times, during long times, it can also be very stale. And so and it's not like you cannot do that I can't do anything else. There's a bunch of other stuff that I could be doing that I'm doing right now that I've already deployed, but that I didn't do because I was too focused or, too comfortable with the short-term success that I had over the last few years. And so one of the big things that I'm changing for 2026 is really that diversification of strategies. I'm going to continue to add risk premium, different types of risk premium strategy on top of what I have, but I'm also going to start going into different markets, different niches, different types of edges that were not in the portfolio before. So right now, as we speak, I have 3 main ones already going on. I'm already in the development of a few more, and that will be the theme for 2026. Continue to expand the book and to continue to add stuff on top of each other, hopefully a bit more uncorrelated to each other, so that we can have returns during periods that other strategies don't have. And yeah, that's a big focus for me for next year.
I think actually this will be such a good podcast because we basically are doing what each other excelled in. Like you've always excelled in playing in more inefficient markets and taking on just a bit more risk than I really ever would. And I think I've always done better with diversification in the sense of just having more strategies, even though they are primarily more risk premium, they were more, let's say, diversified compared to you primarily just going trend following in crypto. And like you definitely showed me over this year that, well, let me put in some context. This year, for sure, I've made more money than any other trading year, and that's primarily because I've more exposed myself into crypto, and then also playing asymmetric games instead of only doing risk premium sort of stuff on Nasdaq, ES, YM, etc. The futures portfolio for me is like still done very well. It's definitely had a pretty good year, and I've definitely taken on more risk there as well. But the big thing has definitely been, being exposed to hyperliquid, going exposed to different sort of other trades we've made over the year, kind of in crypto that have all done really well. And all of them, I would say, are in the top 10 singular like most profit trades, at least for me, and that's definitely been one of the key kind of factors of this year, of why this year has been good for me. For where I need to improve upon, I think, is kind of continuing on this, of that, similar to what you're saying, is stacking returns instead of trying to rely on a singular kind of return. So how I mean that for me is that while I have a portfolio of 10 strategies and futures, I never really ventured much outside of those particular markets. I really focused for quite a while just on futures. I kind of forgot about equities for a bit, and I completely had never really touched crypto that much before, or I never really focused on it too much. So now focusing on crypto, also getting more back into equities and having also automation running there and everything, that's being able to stack returns in all areas instead of just being reliant on, let's say, one market. Even though I thought I was diversified there, I think just more diversification in general, and then, as you were saying, like adding uncorrelated returns to them, even when it's hard, I think is definitely the best way, or the best way to improve in 2026, at least for me.
Yeah, and like even if you like just expand a little bit beyond what we do, if you start like testing new strategies, testing new ideas, and you start putting them together, you'll see that your returns really do improve a lot. Like there's very little I think that most people can do that will produce the same amount of returns or results of stacking like markets and stacking strategies on top of each other. Like there's I think that's the low hanging fruit for a retail trader, because most, like a lot of maybe funds and others can't go where you can, and also cannot like deploy with the same flexibility that you can. And that's one advantage of being a retail trader. We don't have to classify ourselves as trend followers or whatever, as volatility traders. You can, maybe if you can scale that capacity, and I do believe that's a topic for later, but I do believe that's becoming easier to do in terms of scalability with LLMs, with AI and everything like that. But if you can stack a bunch of things on top of each other, that really does help smooth out the equity curve, and that's something that I want to do. And if I may complement that in regards to what I just said with the AI, it's not that AI will help produce you edge. I haven't seen any good evidence that that's something that it can do to whatever reasons. But I do believe that in terms of everything that is adjacent to trading, it can really help. For example, I'm not a coder, right? I'm not a developer. So for a long time, I've struggled with scaling up my trading business because I had to code everything by hand, right? Before AI was really good like it is today. And it would take me a very long time to code up, like to put two strategies together that wouldn't break, that I could control every morning, and then that I wouldn't have to spend 1 hour or 2 hours every day fixing bugs, right? And it was very frustrating for a long time, and that's why I didn't do it. But now with AI, like I consider myself a fairly average coder by now. I'm probably average, but I can get stuff without AI running, right? But it always generated a lot of bugs. Right now, if I have a bug or anything I need developed, I just parse it through Cloud Code, and it kind of like it gets to the problem much faster than me having to investigate it by hand. And I think that creates a lot of opportunities right now for alone traders or one-man operations, whatever you want to call it, that before perhaps wasn't possible, but because you only could control one of two things or at the same time, and if you scaled it up above that, you would start running into a lot of issues around scalability.
Yeah, I think it's more fair to say that you were an average coder, because I was going to say, like, still nowadays, I hate to be the like doomer on it. AI still, for trading code, if you have no coding experience, I'd say is still quite scary to do. If you have like some like I'm not going to say like mentor, but like coach or someone that already knows a bit of code and they're kind of helping you, I think you can learn a lot faster. I also think the learning curve with AI on coding is a lot quicker, right? Like it would take you way longer to get as proficient in coding than it used to now it does, compared to using AI as well. Plus, doing projects is faster, all those sort of things. But if you have no coding experience at all, trading is one of those pretty scary places to launch something live, because if you've made a bad assumption, or you don't understand the code well enough to know that it's duplicating orders or something like that can go kind of crazy wrong. But I do agree, like seeing how much you've been able to increase your output using AI. If you're like somewhat decent at a skill, you now can 2x, 3x that skill just because you can use some AI on top of it.
No, I completely agree. I didn't add that caveat. Sometimes we forget to put ourselves like a few years behind. But it's true, like you still need that live. I think that live intuition, like understanding how the orders go through, how to match everything together, of costs, slippage, market impact, then putting together with the back testing, like something, a model or backtest or whatever engine that you've produced, and everything like everything flowing nicely together. So you need experience in the market to do that for sure. I don't want to I don't want to say it's easy. I'm just saying that you can get faster there, even though it is quite a complicated process.
Completely. Probably the next thing I'd want to touch on for my sort of year review was that I think I can't say how long exactly, but at least probably 2 months, maybe 3. I think I was quite complacent this year. I don't think I really pushed myself to grow as much. I don't think I was as, let's say, like trigger happy with trying new things, pushing out new things, all those sort of things. And I think it was because I got quite complacent with the amount of money that was coming in. Also, like for a period of time, right, like crypto was really easy, or let's say it was more like a bullish market, all those sort of things. And it's quite easy to get a bit complacent during those times. And that's why I wrote an email recently that I said I was thankful for losing $36,000. And it's primarily because while the loss necessarily wasn't my fault, there was definitely things I can improve from it. Like there's obviously like reasons why it happened, etc. The thankfulness came from that it lit like a fire under my ass again, like it pushed me to get better at all these sort of things. And I 100% know, like by the a couple more months time, I've paid, or let's say got a way better ROI on that loss than I've gotten on a lot of things this year. And I think it's because a lot of times, especially let's say you're like we're both well, you're longer into trading than me, but I'm around 6 years into trading. Like after a period of time, it gets quite easy to get a bit complacent, especially if you see a bit of success. So I think like finding those moments again to get you reactivated and trying things again, improving your strategies, all those sort of things, I think is so important. So one of my takeaways this year was that, like, while that moment completely sucked, I remember messaging Pedmer around it. Looking back on it, it was kind of needed. It was almost good. I'm not going to say like I another 36 grand would have been nice to keep, but I'm happy because I'm overall going to be able to improve a lot more than whatever that loss was.
Like as you are saying that, it's so funny, because like it's the same experience I had this year. It's like I wrote an art, not a blog post a few months ago. Let me check. It was in May 31, and it's interesting because even after this, I did the same thing, and the title was "Drawdowns Aren't Dangerous, Winning Is," and the whole idea of the article was of the blog post was me going through some of my, like analyzing some of my past behavior, like when I was winning a lot. Even though I knew I had like a dumb or naive strategy and the market was good and it was carrying me, all that, I still didn't care. You still like push that, sentiment to the back of your head, like you ignore it, you push it under the rug because you are doing so well. And even fully aware that probably that is a market and that isn't you. But winning kind of, I don't know, at least personally, kind of puts this fog on your focus, like because you are winning. Why do I have to get off bed today? Like I'm winning. I made 10,000 yesterday. I'm up 20,000 today. Why do I care? It's like, is that early? I don't know. And even though that the money doesn't matter, like I do this because yeah, you after a certain point you do it because you like it. It's not just the money. Obviously, the money is important. I'm not going to get into it, but I cannot say like. And then it's interesting because even after I wrote that in May, after that in the summer, I went on vacations. I didn't care. I just did whatever I was doing, fully aware that I was being carried by the market at that time, and I just ignored it. Like I remember being in a vacation, and I was at this coffee in the middle of the afternoon, and I was drinking coffee and drinking some wine or whatever. And I was looking around and say, okay, I could like I've made it. When I haven't, like I wasn't even close, but it's so interesting that you let yourself get into this state when you are doing very well, and the problems and all the liabilities that you are adding underneath, all of those will emerge at some point. And maybe that's the next topic, but that's what happened on the 10th of October to me.
Yeah, I was going to say just before we get into that, I think how I sort of internalized it or think about it nowadays is that because when you're winning, right? Like we were both winning for quite a long period of time, and it's like each day I've because both of us view progress in I think somewhat of a similar way, right? Like it's in the sense of like, what if I progress today? We're both kind of like an addict on that. Like I want to know I've completed X amount of tasks or I've done X amount of things or whatever. Because waking up and you're like, oh, I'm already up like 5 grand, 10 grand. It kind of made it feel like, well, I don't really have to do anything today. I could just I could just chill. I can do nothing, and overall, I've still made progress because you see that kind of net worth progress. You see that sort of P&L progress, and that's as you're saying, like it's a great title. It's a very dangerous thing to do because then at some point you will get an event that will make you rethink, or you'll get a big loss that will make you rethink. And from at least what I've noticed over the years is normally when I had these sort of big loss events, that will normally carry me for 2 to 3x the value of the loss. Meaning, for $36,000 lost, I'm probably going to have a very good amount of motivation until I've recovered like 96 grand, give or take. And most of the time, that's because at some point again, then you forget. You get that fog, as you're saying. You think, oh, well, it's going well now. I can relax a bit. I don't have to put like the gas on. And that's why also I have a newfound appreciation for those people that, like Lucas. Like I do really think about it on a daily basis that like, in 2020, he made a million plus, doing shorting small caps, and he kept on it. He didn't let off the gas at all. And I think that's such a difficult skill to have. And it's definitely something I'm trying to carry into me for 2026 as being the skill of that. If I see solid momentum, the biggest thing I'm going to try and not do is let that momentum go. I just have to try everything I can to make sure that each day it is structured in a way where I keep that momentum, because you can progress so much further than you can probably even imagine when you keep that momentum for a long enough period of time.
Yeah, for sure. Like you can rest. We can have periods where we do less, and there's certainly an advantage to that. I don't think everyone needs to be like pressing the pedal at all the time. But for example, these past 3 months, probably more, you see my GitHub, right? You
Yeah, it's
open my
crazy.
Yeah, it's like every day, like every day is green at least. So I've been pushing output like never. I don't remember the last time I pushed this output. I've built so much over the last 3 months, but and I know that I probably cannot keep that for another 3 months. Probably, maybe I do, but I know that I'm putting in a very heavy pace, and that has come because on the 10th of October, as I was going towards that, I got a wake-up call, right? If you are in crypto, you know that the 10th of October was like a very important date, because the crypto market crashed like very hard, not just a crash, it was like a flash crash over the night. A lot, like I saw assets go 50% in a few hours down, right? It eventually rebounded because it was a bit, how do you say, temporary, whatever. But it was a very bad day. I was not like leveraged or anything. I even then I had pretty good risk management. It was still a nasty loss that day. And that's generally okay. That is like that slap on the face. Like you need to wake up. You know that there's inefficiencies in your process. You know that you are too exposed to a certain type of strategy, market, wherever, and you need to diversify. You need to build the necessary infrastructure to not allow this to ever happen again. And so from that day forward, and I actually started this a few days before that, but from that day forward, that idea got cemented, and I began like building everything from there. And it's funny because even after 8 years of doing that, you still need sometimes to be waken up like with a good slap from the market, because you cannot allow liabilities like that, like at least the ones you already know. Because if I got hacked because a new like way of getting into computer came around, whatever. Like I got hacked in a way that I could not prevent it. I could not physically prevent it. I would probably not be as upset as I was about that loss, because that loss was preventable. I knew about it. I just didn't care. I was having a great time on vacation, you know? So it kind of makes it more annoying because you already know. You knew what to do. You just didn't do it because you were lazy. So, yeah.
Yeah, completely. I fully agree. Like, definitely some parts of this year, my biggest trope has definitely been a bit oversizing. I think it's because I've tried out new approaches, and because I have access to new amounts of capital I'm not fully used to yet, or it's grown over the past year. I've allocated some of that capital a bit blindly, right? Like onto a new approach or a new strategy, and I've just put on way too much size. And I think that's definitely one thing as well for me in 2026 is while I love the amount of creativity and also new strategy ideas that I'm kind of testing and new things, I definitely don't want to be applying crazy amount of size to it because as I say in like my own videos, right, like a new approach you should try a very small amount of size, etc. But as with you were saying, like even if you're trading for 6-8 years, whatever, you'll constantly be running into some of these battles over and over again. And that's definitely one thing I've seen is even talking to traders that are let's say managing 10 million or even more, they still have the same sort of issues. Obviously, they'll have them maybe on a lesser degree, or they'll have some issues they've really solved for very well, and then there's like these new issues that come up. But problems never really disappear. And I do remember early in the trading years, I used to think that if you're a profitable trader, you just don't make any mistakes. You're just like you fixed all those plug holes, and now you're just making money consistently. It's never really like that. It's more that like those mistakes don't take you out of the game. They don't hurt as much because you got more capital, etc. But those mistakes are still there. You normally still have to plug those holes, and you'll normally be losing a bit of P&L because of those mistakes. And as you were saying, like the mistakes that are your fault push you a lot more to improve because they sting. They definitely hurt. Especially like losses I've taken some parts of this year. I know I could probably be up another, I don't know, 5 to maybe 10%, give or take, if I hadn't just taken some of those stupid ass, or I just didn't put on that much size when I really didn't need to. And I think that's just one of those things you have to move on from and then learn from in the new year.
Yeah. As you were talking, I was remembering a game that I had that was like driving, making sure the dog like was well behaved on the street. Like you needed to guide him through the correct like trajectory, and every time he deviated from that road, from the road that he was supposed to walk, you would put him back in line. So you would always have to be conscious, like because the game was then got very hard, and you would have to be constantly monitoring the dog to put him back in the straight. And I feel like that's us. That's me at least. Like I've always as a trader, maybe everyone that runs a business on their own, everyone that has a business, it's not just traders perhaps, but you have to be extremely self-aware all the time, because you're only a person that will tell you that, right? You have no boss. You have the only boss that you have is the performance at the end of the year. That's your only boss, right? And if you are not constantly checking yourself, like your biases, if you are letting something slip, you have to have this extreme self-awareness. And I use writing also as a form of being aware, right? Because I have to write about it. I have to think why this happened. And if you are not extremely self-aware, always questioning yourself and trying to pinpoint flaws in your own thinking, and it helps to have a friend like you, Munir. Sometimes we discuss like oversizing, or when I'm like in a loss or whatever, and you pinpoint this flaw or that flaw, and I do the same to you, and that helps already. But at the end of the day, it's us. It's us sitting in the mirror and thinking, why did I underperform? Why did I make this mistake? And really be constantly aware of that. Because the moment that you let it slip, it seems like it's the moment that the market will give you that slap. And hopefully the slap is just a small loss or a medium loss, whatever. It doesn't take you out of the game, but I wouldn't put too much confidence it doesn't.
Yeah, completely. I think one way to end this off is for if anyone wants to do their own review, the main things I've always looked at is like, what are the biggest loss drivers, or where are you losing P&L that you really don't need to? Obviously, in trading, there's going to be a significant portion of your trading you're always going to lose on. That's totally fine. But where were there extra losses, or where was there extra P&L that you lost that you really didn't need to, or in particular days because of X thing happened, or you didn't include or assume for X thing to happen, all those sort of things. Additionally, I always like to pick. I never really want to pick more than three because I think it's very hard to focus on more than three things for a whole year and have them kind of like as your North Star. I think even if you can just like pick one, it's always a great thing to do as long as it's like a impactful enough one. And I think for us, or at least for me personally, I think it's going to be playing more inefficient games and then just continue stacking returns really. I think I've done way too many risk premiums over my career, and I think it's time to. I've got risk premiums quite well down, but it's time to put more energy into finding more inefficient games so I can keep on adding or stacking onto returns instead of just focusing on one. And then also, I guess my third one would be improving, like improving my strategies based on like signal research. So like we've been working on things like ensemble methods, and I did a video about it recently. Like those sort of things. Overall, at the moment, I don't see any reason why not to use them for the most part because they are a bit more complex to implement, sure, but they overall always normally return better risk-adjusted returns. So like those sort of things that I know I've been putting off to do, just actually getting them done, getting them implemented, and getting them live. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. It's like you said, it's the diversification of different types of hedges. That's the main one. Maybe scale across different markets that actually I'm doing already. And being more efficient with signal research. I had this as a topic as well. Just the way that I can iterate ideas much faster. I've been spending a lot of time on infrastructure just to focus on this. How can I like have ideas and test them in the least amount of possible time and implement them like almost from a click of a button from signal research into the implementation on the live market. And that's what I've been spending most of my time on. And yeah, I do think that will yield results in 2026.